Hey guys, welcome to the side of my podcast. I don't know how to start this, but this is going to be the aspect of my podcast where I'll review books that I've read. I've had one or two people ask me, "Oh, I love that you read. I want you to talk about books more, or give us a segment of book reviews." And I think this is the best place to do it, and with a video. So, over the years, I've always done a reading challenge all by myself with nobody. In the sense that, what's a reading challenge? I set the number of books I want to read every year, and I just, read them. So, in the year 2023, I have a goal of 60 books, and so far, I have read only 9, and it is March 3rd, 2023, currently March 3rd. And I'm going to quickly do a review of all the 9 books that I've read so far, and I'll tell you how I read them. I'm going to be doing this. I will try, let me not put too much pressure on myself. I'll try to do this every month. So far, I've missed January and February, so I'm going to be doing a January and February book review. In the month of January, I think I read 5 books, and in the month of February, I think I read 4 books. So let's get into this. And some of those books I started last year and successfully finished them this year. So the first book that I read in January, of which I think I started the book last year, is Flock by Kate Stewart. It's part of the Ravenhood series. I think it's about 4 to 5 books in the series. I'm not completely sure. And that book, I read it 4/5. It was pretty interesting, but it dragged for a bit. I enjoyed like the secrecy and all of that. But the fact that it drags the way it drags is pretty interesting. I read it in Kindle as an ebook. It was pretty chill. I enjoyed reading it. But it kind of dragged at some points in the middle, which I didn't really enjoy. Sometimes I got lost, and that's why I started reading last year and I've not finished it. But I gave it a 4/5 because the storyline was pretty solid for me. And the suspense kept me going. So yes, a 4/5. The second book that I read in January was Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. I gave this book a 3/5 if I'm not wrong. And I gave it a 3/5 because at the beginning I was excited to see where the story was going. But from the middle to the end, I was like, I'm not sure I understand where this book is going anymore. But also the end was very blah, which I don't know. I did not understand how, a treasure hunt went. Well, it was interesting. The treasure hunt thing was pretty cool. It was a good storyline. But like the path where the love story did not really, the romance did not really, it didn't really fit into it for me, which it was just it's the romance, and it just felt out of place, and they needed to put something in it. I love Christina Lauren. I read a lot of her books, and her books are really good, but this particular one did not do it for me, so it was a 3/5. The third book I read in January was Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. To be sincere, this particular book I gave a 5/5, but when I think about it now, like I'm looking at my Goodreads app and I rated it 5/5. When I think about it now, I think it was a 3.5 because the story was interesting. Don't get me wrong. It was interesting. The whole like ice skaters, no, do they call them figure skaters and the hockey player. I'm not a hockey girl, but it was quite interesting how that storyline went. The romance was pretty cute. I enjoyed it. I give it 5/5. But like in hindsight, I think I was just too excited to read a new book that I read. I read this in a short period of time. I started in January, I finished in January. I think between like 2-3 days. I think I finished the book. It didn't take me that long to finish it. But I think I'll stick to 5/5 because of the yummy chummy romance. But in a hindsight, it's a 3/5. The fourth book that I read was Taylor Jenkins Reid Carrie Soto is Back. That book is a solid 5/5. Oh my god. If you've not read it, please go and read Taylor Jenkins Reid's Carrie Soto is Back. I think the book came out last year. I think it was my first solid 5/5 for the year. Like, aside from Icebreaker, being in the moment, and me rating the 5/5, and I'm saying it now that it's a 3/5. But Carrie Soto is Back. It's a 5. I never knew how much I would fall in love with tennis until I read this book. The book's premise was on tennis and so Carrie Soto's life and her father's life with tennis, and her love life and how she grew with her career. For the first time in forever, I loved how subtle this book was. The romance was not overpowering. Her life, it was a well-written book. Oh my god. I read this book within 2-3 days, I think. This book was so good, and please, if you've not read Character to His Back, if you're thinking about it, please go and read Character to His Back. That was a book. That was a book. And if you're a sports fanatic, you love sports, you love to see people's story. One thing about me, I love to read people's story and how they've overcome different things. This book, chef's kisses. Loved every moment from the beginning to the end. My fifth book for January is When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill. I don't remember the story, but I rated it a 5/5. I don't know. I think it was When We Lost Our Heads. Man, I think this book was an audio book for me, and I think I read it at the end of January. It went by pretty fast. I don't know why I cannot remember it, but I give it a 5/5. Anyone who's out there who has read this book, can you please tell me what you rated it? I'm so sorry, I can't remember the story. And am I the only one who reads book and never remembers the story? Well, it was a 5/5 for me. That means it must have been good, but I can't remember why I rated it 5/5. The month of February. Now we're over to February. Those are the 5 books I read in January. In February, I read 4 books. One of them was Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola. I started this book in August 2022, and I finished in February 2022. Literally, it took too long for me to finish this book, and that was because I started the book with so much vigor. I was excited. I bought the 2 books, Honey and Spice, and I bought the second one. It's right here. Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola. It was a pretty okay book, but my rating was 3/5. And I will explain. The book started off strong, interesting, and if you can see, it's pretty bulky. It's huge. I read a physical copy, and I realized that I'm not a strong physical copy girl. I'm either a Kindle girl or audiobook girl, because I'm always on the move and I don't have time to always sit down with a physical book. But this particular book started off strong. I read it every night from August when I started reading the book, and I was excited to finish it. But I got to the middle, and it just dragged. The storyline was interesting, but for some reason, I felt like the chapters could have been lesser than what it was. I don't know why I feel like that. But I'm yet to read her second book to see. I have it somewhere. Love in Colors. I've not read that yet. But this particular book, it was a good storyline. I think the beginning was great. The end was amazing, but the middle wasn't it for me. I felt like it was stringed along too far, and also the chapters were too long. Anyway, that was my rating for how I kicked off my reading in February 2023. The other book that I read that gave me so much joy in February was The Lonely Heart Hotel. Oh my god, by Heather O'Neill. Literally, after I read Honey and Spice by Babalola, I needed something to pump me up, something that made me feel some type of way in my head, This particular story was the storyline was great. It was talk about the lonely lives of two children, how they went from talent shows to writing their future. It was great. How the romance, how you would think that, oh my god, they are going to meet soon, this is going to happen, and before you know it, they're not meeting, this is going wrong. It seemed like the series of unfortunate events for me. If you ever seen that show, a series of unfortunate events, that's what this book premise looked like, and it was so good, so good. Also, I liked the fact that it did not end in an amazing ending. So it was this book was a 5/5. My first 5/5 in February. I loved it. The Lonely Heart of Heather O'Neill. It was so good. Heather O'Neill was my latest. I kept telling everybody that after I read both books by Heather O'Neill, she became my favorite author for the year. Anyway, after The Lonely Heart Hotel, I decided to drop romance and drop all the romance that I've been doing and pick up some self-help books. The first self-help book I picked up was Marry Him by Laurie Gottlieb. It's the case of settling for Mr. Goodenough. And I rated it 3/5. I didn't learn anything new. Same old. My friend recommended. She was like, oh, you need to read it. And it was just there. Basically, the whole premise of the book was we as humans, ladies especially, were always aiming for like the best, the best, the best, but we're missing out the good ones in front of us, and eventually we end up with nobody because there's nobody who's perfect. And I was like, yeah, it was okay. There was a lot of things that don't really apply to my life that was in the book, but it was alright. It was a 3/5. The other book, the last book I read in February was Don't Believe the Swipe by Mandy Haley. I don't know, Mandy Hill, I think that's what her name is. And these two authors, they were writing about their lifestyles, their romance life as well, at the age of 40, 41, I think they were in. And they also talked about their lives from the past, like how they had rejected men or proposals from the past, and how it has affected them now, and also interviewing other people who have had like romance and all that stuff, good stuff. But like, I don't really like self-help book, not my style. So when I read this last book, Don't Believe the Swipe, I gave it a 5/5 because it came from a Christian background. I'm a Christian. I love reading books that touch on my beliefs and my things that I love. And it was okay. I rated it 5/5, but when I think about it now, I remember talking to my friend and telling her that it was 4/5 for me. So it was a 4/5 book. But yeah, those are all the books I read in January and February. That was very lengthy. But currently, in the month of March, these are the books I'm currently reading. Christmas Shopaholic. Is it Christmas? No. Am I reading a Christmas book? Yes. Christmas Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. I'm not enjoying it so far. Cannot wait to be done. I started reading the book and I've transferred to reading the audio because I couldn't carry this all around. And I bought the book because it's pretty. Anyway, the other book I'm also reading, and please do not ask me how I'm reading two books at the same time. It's just the way I do things. I'm also reading Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. It's a new book. It just came out. And I am on page 48. It's okay, but I find myself dropping it down a lot. I don't know why, but I'll review it at the end of March. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for listening. And until next time, do have a wonderful day.